access to, and that's this. So where do we go to start a project?
List and stuff. New project.
New project, correct. And from now on, when I ask the questions, the remote office is going to give me the answers, correct?
You got it.
Thank you, babe.
And then we can laugh.
And you guys are going to be quiet over here. That's fine. So I can go ahead and pull up sound image like we did before. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into my proposal to do status and give it a title. AV system, boardroom. And we don't need the class. Good. And then I'm just going to go right into the editor like so. You see how fast I was? That wasn't a long-term screen. We spent a half an hour on it, but in fact it's a 5-minute screen. And the point to do is to get to here. And what I'm turning on now is, I just turned it off to turn it back on. So you guys have a module called auto estimating. What auto estimating does is it ties labor to a device, up to 5 labor rates to a device. So you can have it calculate the time for you automatically. And then the way to turn this on is you go to setup, F9 setup, and you turn on auto estimating and edit with 5 hours. And you know this whole screen came up here, so you can actually tell the system the one-way distance to the job, 40 miles, 60 miles, 80 miles to the job, and it calculates travel costs and all that as well. And when we do that, you notice a new set of columns show up here: pre-wire, trim, shop, training, and programming. Now the 5 labor types can be changed. You know, it's a corporate level. You know, we care about, you know, a different set of, you know, a different line item names. So these can have different line item names. So the normal things apply. Elections change, and you can do an M line like we did before, and look up and do sound image and all that kind of good stuff. Like so. And then hit done and come over here. And we talked about you know, system 1 with this guy here, system 1, and we bolded it like so. And we changed the font. Now, we talked about also the fact we do a part, we do JBL 4000 series F2, grab our item like this, and we set our quantity, 10 of these guys, click, 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 click. The new thing that comes into play is this time is now sitting there. So it had hour trim and 1.5 hours pre-wire for this guy. Now, if I use an item I've never used before, and I page down to something like this, and I go up an arrow just to grab something like this, you see this screen pops up what didn't happen before in this guy, because it, and you can see it's actually defaulted as 2 hours. And I purposely, I'm going to have it not remember this for the future for demo purposes, but the point is, it comes in with 2 hours like so, and that's where you actually seed the time, and I'll just put time in manually like so. That's where you seed the time like that, okay? Now, the big thing is if you use an assembly that has all the devices figured out, part, EDW, CM1, this guy right here, all of a sudden, I set my quantity. Now, if you notice, if you forget something, like I didn't forget to do this guy over there. So if you don't finish this assembly, it's been calculated to remember, to require some pieces of information from the operator. That way you don't get out without missing something like so. But the point is that it brought all this time in automatically for the different files. So whether this is speakers or racks or background music or projectors or whatever this is that you're bringing in, it can carry with it the time associated with the installation. So things that you do regularly, that's where this comes into play. When you do something often, you know, Crestron, EMX, all that kind of thing we use all the time, this is where this comes in handy. And then I'm going to use another labor assembly, PLABR labor assembly. And this is going to bring in pre-wire, device work, shop time, project management, drafting. And notice these have these little colon minus, and those are going to be the automatic times, 1 through 5, right there, 1 through 5, right over here. But this manual time, I can say I got 10 hours of drafting, I've got 5 hours in engineering, and 18 hours and 8 hours of documentation. You know, for
That's the newest style, right?
when you do a 500 person church, you got the size what I'm talking about, give or take? What's the engineering time on that? Just give me a clue.
That's a huge.
I mean,
Don't laugh. One of our engineers will tell you that it will take that. Well, only one of them, but they'll tell you.
what is that church? You know, 500 person church. You know, it's got video conferencing, video projector, sound system. What are you looking at in engineering time? Just as an idea. 20 hours, 50 hours,
Give it 40.
40 hours a week.
40.
Okay, all right, fine. I'm just curious. So if I said, so that 5 hours is ridiculous, it's going to be 40 hours, that thing like that. Okay, all right. But you notice this is a device dependent. This is just the time for the engineers themselves. You know, put the stupid thing together, and then you've got the device time as well. Is the point of this? Is the point of this conversation? And if you'd specified the travel time here, it would bring in the travel time as well. Notice you can also have it calculate maintenance contract time. So this is going to be automatic testing and inspections and extended warranty, like so. And we drop this in like that. And we page up. So now the hours, except for the manual hours, these always came in blank, but when I press auto estimate here, click, now it has our time in like that. Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you see where this will come in handy? Does this make sense for you or not really?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, it may not be that granular from the field labor installation side of it.
Okay.
You know, it may be lumped as installing this speaker. We're gonna wrap the pre-wire trim and mounting of it all
Right.
into one.
Right. Okay.
And that kind of seems the simplest way to start because we don't even really have a way in our payroll system to differentiate from those different
I see.
aspects
I see.
of installing it.
Okay. Got it.
We got like shop labor, field labor, programming,
Fine.
travel. Our general categories that tend to be in our current workbook could auto calculate. Then things like just like you had engineering, documentation, design was a lump sum that you do to the project.
Right. Right.
Now
right.
what we are able to do, and I'm hoping that it looked like we were able to, because as a project you get economies of scale. We know, yeah, it takes 1.5 hours to install a speaker when you're doing one, but when you're doing 1,000,
Right.
we could say we've estimated that actually it's only going to take 1,000 hours to do this job, field
Right.
labor wise.
Right.
We can hard code.
Yeah, you can
over those.
you can downgrade this. You can say 0.5, just like
well,
that.
I mean, like, can you leave that alone?
Oh, okay.
We had a reference, but just at that
Ah,
lump
ah.
sum spot, hard code over it.
Yeah, so you can. So that was 1 hour here. So yeah, so once you get to this figure here, and I'm just going to go bottom and page up. Once you get to this figure with auto estimating on, you just turn it off. So first of all, if I raise this quantity up, and I just go to 100 for purposes of demonstration like this, and then I do auto estimating like this, you see that went from 40 to 53. It moved. Okay. So when you make adjustments to the devices, this moves for you.
Okay.
Now, once you're here and you've got 200 hours, and you say, "Crap, that's not enough time," or "That's over budget," either way,
Yeah.
correct? So now, what you will do is, if you want to override this time, you turn auto estimating off.
Okay.
It's simply F9 setup and back this out like this, and now I can make that 75 hours like so, and the auto estimate button is no longer functional. Okay, but that is the trick is to turn auto estimating off once you're happy with the budget range I'm going to be in. Okay, the other side of the coin is this. If I have auto estimating on, and you see it came up with, and I'll hit retotal right here, it's back to my 53 hours. Okay, but if I say crap, terrible building, security's gonna be a problem, they're gonna milk us, we're gonna have escorts, you know, the whole thing gets messed up time-wise. Let's double the time, you know, because we know we got a problem child. There's a thing called offset right here, and you could say 100% up, doubling the time effectively. So when I click on this, that just went from 53 to 70, from 53 to 106, okay? Or the reverse is true. If I'm gonna sub out the pre-wire to an electrical, then I can do 100% minus, and now you notice the pre-wire just went away. So there's a couple things you can do called the offset that lets you expand, increase, or decrease just because of scales. Like you said, if you're running, you know, 2 speakers, you know, the same way all the time, it's half the time, or let's say a quarter of the time, you know, a quarter less of the time, 75% of the time versus the full 1 hour per device. So couple things. One, you can use the offset to offset this, and we could say up 50%, like so, or down 50%. So we'll just say down 50%, like so. And that 53 will now turn into, you know, 35 or something, like 26 hours, something like that. Okay? And then turn it off altogether once you're at your place. And there you go. Let's go back. Let me look at our document here. So we talked about the F2 key. So we talked about, just to review a few things, you're in a project editor, P, JBL, 4000 F2. So that's, we talked about this. On this screen right here, the escape key takes you back, i.e. escape. It lets you escape. And the escape key lets you back out of that as well. So ESC key does that. One of the other buttons that's important here is if you're on an item like this guy right here, and you press the inventory button right here, click, now you're actually onto that inventory item itself. You can see, you know, if you have any stock, you can see the pricing, you can see the update date, you can see who your vendor is just by pressing the inventory button, okay? If I press the vendor button, click, now you're looking at JBL, like so, okay? Hence, you could get to the phone number, for example. So those 2 buttons help you with that. There's a feature called extras. Now, some people use this very extensively, but what the extras do is the miscellaneous things that, you know, crane rental, electrical supplies, travel costs, things like that, where you can put an estimated cost and a selling price for those items. So if I said we're going to have to bring some lifts and it's going to cost us $2,000 in lifts, and I want to mark it up 10% or 20% or something like that, make it $400, simple like that. And when I hit exit, it now has that extra sitting right there as a budgetary cost for those guys. And incidentally, if you remember the, it was hot outside. I ate outside at the restaurant. I kind of got hot. If you remember on the WIP report, we had hardware, parts, we had labor, hardware, extras. And that's where that extra comes from, right there, where you can estimate an extra like a lift or something like that.
Is there a markup on that?
Yes, that was a manual markup. If I go back to extras, you see I just marked it up, 20% is what I just did right there. So cost and sell price. Okay.
Is that mark percent on the bottom there?
I don't know what this does. I can't remember what this does. Yeah, let's try 50%. Let's see what it does. Maybe, actually, if I do this and I do 100, look at that. Okay. Now it didn't mark it up. It did 1-to-1. Let's see what 100 does here. You surprised me because I forgot what I did here. So that's strictly markup. There you go. So it is markup. Excuse me. Okay. Or is it gross
We
profit?
use margin.
Oh, it's margin. Yeah, it's margin. So it's margin. It's actually using margin as a mechanism to work that out. Very good. Thank you. So if I did this, just to do this, if we said 20% margin, there you go, like this, and we did 100, no,
No, it's doing a markup, so you have to say what you want to mark it up as.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Anyways, that's what that's for. Now, this list, you can define these, incidentally. One, but you can only have 20 of them, number one, and you want to always leave the last one as miscellaneous. So you can change these titles in setup if you want. You're totally welcome to do that. Okay. And later on in time, you see we've got the estimated cost. We actually have the actual cost can be captured against these as well. So this is also part of the job cost functionality can be used.
How does that show up on the quote? Does that come out as a line item?
Well, it shows up at the bottom of the quote as extras.
Okay.
Or there's an option where you can actually have a line item out,
Okay.
each of the items you have. So there's an option for that. The retotal button right here does just that. It retotals the screen, especially if you go and make some changes in the hardware, 20 of those puppies like so, and you want to see what the subtotal is, hit the retotal button, clack, and now it resubtotaled the money like that. Okay? Delete button does exactly as expected. Hit delete key, and it gives you a confirmation for delete. You can also use this delete key on the keyboard, and it gives you a confirmation for delete as well. You can also scribe 2 or 3 items like so, and then hit the delete key, and it'll tell you it's about to delete those 3 lines, like so. Okay. We've already been at the heading section. This is where you change the description, the ship address. You could change the customer. So if this is the wrong customer, we thought it was going to be Sound Image, but now we're going to go bill the high school or something like that, or the school, you can hit the change customer screen and then choose a different customer, and now it's letting you change that customer just like that. Okay? Incidentally, you can create a customer called bid day or contractor bid. Now, you do a lot of bid work? Did I hear that?
Mhm.
Did I hear that in the conversation?
Yeah, significant bid work.
So the point is that you don't know who the electrical is going to be. You're bidding it through 3 different electricals, correct?
Yep.
20 different electricals, whatever that animal
Yeah.
is. So you can create it. You can create a customer. In fact, in my system, change customer bid day, you can create a customer called bid day, like so. And then the title is the job, St. Mary's Hospital, nurse call system, whatever. And the point of this particular customer is it's got a classification as dummy customer. You're not adding the customer to the customer list, and you can't do any business with this customer, i.e. you can't go into production. It won't let you purchase on purpose because we got to choose the right customer, be it the right electrical or add a customer, whatever that is. But bid day lets you just do a generic quote out the door without having to create the customer until you know who the customer is. Okay? And let me put that back to BR, change customer back to sound image. So go to heading section, change customer, sound image, like so. Double click, and then save changes like so. Okay, good. Now, do go through the effort of learning the vocabulary for your world. It does remember certain words, but things like that it won't understand. So you should definitely learn, spend the time to learn, let the system learn your common words that it's breaking on because it doesn't understand those words. Okay, that was heading section. Freight button here. So one of the things is you can turn on freight, and that is just a straight number. I can say $500 freight. So that's just a straight number, and it also appears right there as a number that will appear at the bottom of the quote. Okay? Now, there's also, you notice it's calculating shipping and handling. Now, shipping and handling is a percentage of the hardware. just straight math. And you can have that on or off, and that's also under setup where you've got shipping and handling being calculated, yes, and I just turned it off, so now it just went away. So if you want it to auto-calculate based on shipping and handling, now would be the rate? What would be the rate if you had to give me a rate? What would that percentage be for shipping and handling?
Ours defaults at 3.
3%, fine. Now, is it on by default, or you turn it on when you want it?
It's built in.
It's built in. So the point is, it's going to be auto on for sales, but not for service. Correct? That thing?
Or
is it?
for service too.
And for service too. Okay, fine. So those are setup questions. Good. So that's under the either the freight button or the setup button takes you to the same place, to these options right here. And I can turn shipping and handling on or off, and I can enter a hard freight rate like so. Now, occasionally, maybe not occasionally, maybe more often than not, occasionally you want to put freight along the way of the project. Like this is going to have this projector screen is going to take $200 just for that screen to come in, and you want to put it along the way and itemize out for the customer where those freight things are going to be. Correct? Am I saying right words?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, whatever. You can do that by using a part number. So if I F11 down and I do a part, in my case it's going to be Dove Freight, Freight, Freight. Can't spell, can't type, right there. And I'll do one of these, that's freight, and then I can say my cost is going to be $200, and do I update inventory? No, and I'm going to mark it up 10%, so $220, something like that, just to cover our carrying costs for that guy right there. But the point is, it's visible to the customer, okay, and then it can be taxable or non-taxable. Freight isn't taxable in your world, so you can actually go on the item itself and uncheck this taxable line, and then it won't be taxed, like so, okay? Notice these items here, this Dove item here. Now, in your case, it's SI, correct? Your company name will be SI space freight will be what you'll do. SI trip charge, SI services that you bill for or want to quote that are not real inventory items. They're not inventory, but they're services, some sort of services, okay? Or freight in this example. What you can do is put B for billing item here, and then it won't require any inventory. You can still bill it, and you don't have to order receive it or fake the system out and give it inventory in order to sell it. By putting the B for billing item, you can just bill it straight out. No inventory required, okay? And you'll notice if I go to list right here, I've got a bunch of Dove. There's a bunch of parts that are under here that have different purposes. I've got one that does taxes along the way. I've got one, a trip charge. These are all billing type lines, especially on the service side where you've got, trip charge, mileage, a mileage fee or something like that, or zone fees, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. All those things that you might do in a billing environment, you can create part numbers, and that would be SI, whatever this is, SI this, SI that, and so forth like this, and so forth. So that's an example where you can create a part number that is not for billing purposes, but for services. Okay? Now, do you think, Mr. Jeff, from what you've seen right now, do you think you're going to let these guys add parts to the system, or are you going to hold that for yourself?
Well, that's something you talk to Mike too about, but as long as they're the just billing only, I don't care, because I want to make sure that all the part numbers that get added are out of the price sheets.
So that's the point. If we add a price sheet, if we add an item, we need to follow rules.
Yeah, because I don't want you to start adding
crap.
Our inventory now is full
Crap.
of
It's
garbage.
crap. It's
and
crap.
I just don't want to get there again.
They got dash and not dashes and the whole thing. So I have no problem with this size company. I have no problem reining this in and letting you take care of adding new parts.
I can do that. If they
Yeah.
come to me first and say, hey, I need to add this, I
Or-
can do it.
They put an E-line for the quote, and you deal with it on your
Yes.
side.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the E-line is your friend. Throw a part in there.
Yeah. And I'll give you the
Ikigami,
part number.
Ikigami, da 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 da. And if he feels it's repeatable, he'll throw it in there.
Yes.
Okay? And that way we can control who's messing with the inventory system. It doesn't slow you guys down, except for you have to type in the description once. But other than that, it doesn't slow you down from doing a quote. So let's just make that what's going on right now, and then let him deal with it. And the counterpart, yes, you have a counterpart?
Lynette, she's
Lynette.
there too. Yep.
The counterpart
She can do the same.
would
thing.
be the other side of this for the thing like that. Okay. And just to prove a point, and I have no problem showing this, although we're going to limit who can do this. But if I do want to add a part, PJBL, sorry, can't type that, JBL, and I put all my parts under JBL for purposes, demonstration purposes. And if I press enter, that one is found. So I've already used that part, interestingly enough, correct? Okay. Okay, so PJBL X1 dash, that thing right there, not found. Okay? So if I wanted to add that part, for example, first of all, what I would do is look around. Did I miss it off by a character? You know, that thing? Or, no, that's the part number. It's exactly right. I can press enter. I can press F5. And now I'm adding that item, just that easy. So it's not hard to add items, but it's a responsibility to add items. So right now, Jeff's going to have that animal, and I can say this is a speaker, S-P-E-S, and we have a cost of $125, like so. And then I hit the done button, and I hit exit. And I'm using that part just that fast. And then auto estimating kicks in just like it did like this. And then we just use the part like so. So it's not hard to add a part, but it is a responsibility to add a part. Cool? Okay? Inventory, anything set up freight. We talked about the freight button. We can go to print. Extended data. Now, extended data is an interesting animal. This was created many, many years ago. But what it does is it gives you pigeonholes to put the sections you're bidding, like 25 dash and 17 dash, 1700, that whole section of the bid, and what the type is and description like so, and a description and who the owner is and who the site is. There might be a site trailer. And then over here on this guy, you might have an architect, electrical engineer, a general contractor, general on site. And then over here, you might have electrical on site, etc. So this is a place for you to store all kinds of data related to this particular project, like so. Okay. The next tab gives you who you bid this to. So if you got 3 or 4 or 5 different electricals, you can right-click over here and get name. And I said ABC Electric like so, and there's my first guy I bid to, and then I come over here to the next one, and I did, GG Electric like so. So you can keep track of all the ones you did, and even have a different, if you gave them a different price for some reason, whatever that is, something like that. Okay. Of course, we don't do faxing anymore, but you can get the email. It does bring over the email addresses like so. So that was extended data. Let's see what else was on the next tab. The next tab is a little bit of project management. When we have to do submittals, when we have to do backlink, and these you could name these titles to be your titles, whatever your flow of a bit project is, and when it's due, and if we sent to when it was approved, and any notes associated with this. So these are kind of tasks that have to be done, and then you've got sort of project management dates. Now this may be too little as far as you're concerned as what you can use, but they're here. They're all under this dates side. And then later on, you've got the total of the project and billing information. But the first two are the big ones. The general information, all the contact information, and then if you're going to use this for who you're going to bid this to, like so. That's all under extended data. You have a job notes button here. This is where you can keep notes that you can't put along the way. You know, a U-line doesn't do it for you. It's not enough information. You want to store more notes about this project. And you can create notes like this, and you can have general notes like so, and it can be time-stamped. And you can also have, you know, installation notes. C-E-S, like so. And so you can have general notes and installation notes and whatever else you want to do here. So it's another place to keep data related to this particular project. Okay. We talked about Document Manager. All right. The system does log all along the way who's been in this project, and it also keeps an email log of anything that's been mailed out of this particular project. Oh, I showed you the F1 key helps key, that thing right there, that brings up that guy. I do recommend you actually go ahead and, you know, print this off and put it next to your monitor, because that's your little Bible for the first couple weeks using the system until you get these keystrokes down. Setup. Okay. So let's do. Stop this tape.